It all started with a single lie. And like most lies, it wasn't big at first, just a little crack in the glass. Something you could almost ignore if you wanted to. But here's the thing about cracks. If you don't deal with them, they spread until the whole thing shatters. My name is Daniel, and for most of my life, I thought I had the perfect relationship. I met my wife, Claire, when we were both in college. She was beautiful, funny, and had this energy that drew everyone in. I wasn't the most confident guy, but when she chose me, it felt like I'd won the lottery. We got married in our late 20s. Our families loved each other. We bought a house. And for years, I thought we were building something real. The kind of marriage where you can grow old together, watching grandkids play in the backyard. But then the late nights started. At first, Claire said it was just work. She had a demanding job, lots of projects, lots of clients. I believed her. Of course I did. I mean, why wouldn't I? She was my wife. But small things started to bother me. Her phone was always face down. She started locking it with a code I didn't know. Sometimes she'd smile at a text and quickly swipe it away when she noticed me looking. I told myself I was just being paranoid. After all, paranoia destroys relationships, right? That's what she told me. Every time I asked, Daniel, you're imagining things. Stop being so insecure. And I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to. But then came the business trip. She said she had to be in another city for 3 days. Meetings, presentations, late-night dinners. Nothing unusual. But something inside me just wouldn't settle. It was like my gut knew something my brain refused to see. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I checked her email, and that's when the first crack turned into a hole I couldn't ignore. I saw a confirmation email for a hotel room, but not in the city she said she was traveling to. No, this was in a completely different place, 2 hours away. At that moment, I felt like the floor disappeared under me. My heart pounded, my palms were sweating, and yet I told myself there had to be an explanation. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe her company booked it wrong. Maybe I was still paranoid. But deep down I knew. I printed that email and shoved it in my pocket. Then I did something even crazier. I drove to that hotel. It was late, nearly midnight, when I pulled into the parking lot. I had no plan, no idea what I was going to say or do if I saw her. My stomach was in knots. My hands were shaking. But I walked into the lobby anyway. And there she was, not with a group of co-workers, not with a laptop in front of her. She was at the bar, laughing, a glass of wine in her hand. And sitting next to her, way too close, was a man I had never seen before. They weren't just colleagues. I didn't need anyone to spell that out for me. The way she leaned into him, the way his hand brushed hers, the way they looked at each other, it was obvious. I felt my whole body go numb. Part of me wanted to storm over, scream, demand answers right there in front of everyone. But I froze. My legs wouldn't move. My throat closed up. I couldn't breathe. Instead, I turned around, walked out of the hotel, and sat in my car shaking. That's when I realized I needed proof, because if I confronted her now, she'd just deny it. She'd twist it around, call me paranoid again, make me feel like I was a crazy one. So I made a decision. The next morning, I came back to that hotel. I went straight to the front desk and asked about security cameras. The clerk told me they had footage of the bar area, and that only management could access it. It took me 2 hours of convincing, a lot of desperation in my voice, and a $100 bill slipped across the counter. But eventually, I walked out of there with something that would change everything. A USB drive. On it was the hotel's camera footage from the night before. And what I saw when I opened it, it made my blood run cold. For the next few days, I lived 2 lives. By day, I was the same loving husband and dad, sitting at the dinner table, laughing with my daughter, asking my wife about her day. I kept my voice steady, my face calm, not a hint of suspicion. If anything, I acted sweeter, kinder. And the irony? She seemed to relax, as if my ignorance gave her freedom. But by night, I was a different man entirely. I would sit in my car, parked 2 blocks down from my own house, heart pounding, as I scrolled through the live feed of the hidden camera. The image quality wasn't Hollywood level, but it was sharp enough to show me everything I needed to see. At first, nothing happened. Just her cleaning, cooking, scrolling on her phone. For a fleeting moment, I almost convinced myself I was crazy. Maybe I had misunderstood everything. Maybe that little slip of her saying, "I love you," on the phone wasn't what it sounded like. But then it happened. One evening, when our daughter was at a friend's house, the front door opened, and he walked in, a man I had never seen before, tall, dark-haired, carrying himself with the casual arrogance of someone who knew he was welcome. And then I saw it, the kiss, right there in my own living room. Not a nervous, guilty kiss. No, this was routine, practiced, familiar. My hands trembled so violently that I almost dropped the phone. The reality hit me like a freight train. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This wasn't confusion. This was an affair. And it wasn't new. The way they moved around my house told me everything. They were comfortable. They had done this before. She laughed in a way I hadn't heard in years. That soft laugh she used to give me when we first met. Only now it was reserved for him. That night, I didn't sleep. I just sat in the car, watching, replaying, memorizing every second. And as much as it tore me apart, a cold, calculating part of my brain began to take control. This wasn't just betrayal. This was war. I needed more proof. I needed undeniable evidence. If I confronted her too soon, she could twist the story, cry, gaslight me, make me doubt my own sanity. No, I needed something so solid that even she couldn't deny it. So I bought another camera, then another, hidden in different places, the hallway, the kitchen, even the bedroom. Every corner of my home became a silent witness. And slowly, over the next few weeks, I built a library of betrayal. Videos, audio, phone logs, a pattern of lies so clear it would destroy her entire narrative. But here's the thing. While I was playing detective, she was playing a dangerous game too. She thought she was clever. She thought she was in control. But her arrogance blinded her. She didn't notice the subtle shift in me, how I no longer asked her too many questions, how I encouraged her nights with friends. She thought she was winning. But what she didn't know was that I was setting the stage for the ultimate reveal. And I wasn't planning to expose her in private. No, when the truth came out, it would be in front of everyone. Family, friends, maybe even more. Because I realized something. Cheaters don't just fear getting caught. They fear exposure. They fear the world knowing who they really are. And I was about to give her exactly that. The days after my discovery were a blur. I went to work, smiled at my co-workers, even laughed at jokes, but inside I was hollow. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Emma's hands on him, the way she looked at him like I never existed. It wasn't just betrayal, it was erasure. I couldn't tell anyone. Not yet. My friends loved Emma. My family adored her. How do you explain that the woman everyone thought was perfect was stabbing you in the back? I felt like screaming, but instead, I bottled it all up, and that silence, it almost killed me. The funny thing about betrayal is that it doesn't stay hidden for long. It festers, it leaks, it claws its way out. I started noticing tiny cracks in her behavior. Emma was suddenly protective of her phone, guarding it like it held state secrets. She began coming home later, blaming work or traffic. And her laughter, it wasn't for me anymore. I told myself I needed proof. Real, undeniable proof. Not just a gut feeling or a moment caught by accident. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I became a spy in my own home. At first, it was small. I checked her text notifications when she left her phone on the counter. Always locked, of course. I glanced at her emails, her calendar, her excuses. Nothing concrete, just a pattern of lies dressed up as normal life. Then one night, she said she was going out with friends. Something about a girls' night. But when she left, dressed in a way she hadn't dressed me in months, I felt my chest tighten. I grabbed my keys and followed her. I know it sounds crazy, creepy even, but when someone rips your world apart, logic doesn't live here anymore. I trailed her car from a distance. My headlights dimmed. She wasn't headed downtown where her friends usually met. Instead, she drove toward the edge of the city, to a quiet neighborhood I didn't recognize. She parked in front of a house, checked her makeup in the mirror, and rang the doorbell. And guess who opened the door? David, my best friend. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. He pulled her inside like she belonged there, like she wasn't my wife. I sat in the car for what felt like hours, my heart pounding, my brain screaming. This was it. This was the undeniable proof I needed. But proof wasn't enough. Not for me. Not anymore. Driving home that night, I made a decision that would change everything. I wasn't just going to confront them. I wasn't going to beg for answers or cry in some pathetic showdown. No, I was going to make them regret ever thinking they could play me. I started researching. Quietly, carefully. I read stories online, watched videos, even scrolled through Reddit threads about revenge. Some people said just walk away. Others shared tales of elaborate payback that left cheaters broken. And the more I read, the more I knew I wasn't walking away. I set a plan in motion. Step 1, play the role. I acted like nothing was wrong. I smiled at Emma, kissed her cheek, even made her breakfast. I texted David like I used to, keeping the friendship alive. They thought I was blind, stupid, comfortable. They didn't realize I was watching, documenting, preparing. Step 2, I got help. Not from friend, not from family. They were all too close, too emotional. I hired someone, a private investigator. I didn't even know people like that really existed outside of movies. But they do. And this guy, he was good. Within a week, he handed me photos. Crystal clear shots of Emma and David together. Kissing at restaurants, holding hands in the park, sneaking into hotels. Every lie she had told me, every excuse David had fed me. It was all there in glossy, undeniable proof. When I looked at those photos, something inside me shifted. The pain dulled. The rage sharpened. This wasn't heartbreak anymore. This was war. And war requires patience. So I waited. I smiled. I let them dig their own graves. Deeper and deeper. Emma thought she was clever. David thought he was winning. But I was already holding the cards. They just didn't know it yet. Because when I finally exposed them, it wasn't going to be in private. No, it was going to be in a way that neither of them would ever forget. For weeks, I kept my little secret close to my chest, the hidden camera in our living room. I didn't install it with the intention of spying on my wife. I set it up originally to check on the house when we traveled or just keep an eye on things when deliveries came. But something in me told me not to remove it. Something in me whispered that I might need it. I didn't know then just how much it would save me. One Friday evening, I pretended I had to work late. I kissed Lisa goodbye around 6 p.m., grabbed my briefcase, and walked out the door. But instead of heading to the office, I drove a block away, parked, and watched our house from a distance. My heart was racing. My palms were sweaty against the steering wheel. I wasn't sure what I expected to see. For the first half hour, nothing happened. The lights flickered on in the kitchen. Lisa poured herself a glass of wine. She scrolled on her phone. Totally normal. I almost felt guilty, like maybe I was making a fool of myself with all this suspicion. But then, around 7:15, a black SUV pulled up to the curb, and out stepped Mark, my best friend, the man who had been at my side through thick and thin, the man who, just months earlier, had toasted my marriage at our anniversary dinner. I gripped the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. My breath caught in my throat. I watched as Lisa opened the door almost immediately, like she had been waiting for him. She didn't hesitate. She didn't act surprised. She smiled, and then she let him in. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't even move. My mind was screaming, but my body felt paralyzed. For a few minutes, I just sat there, watching the glow of the living room lights through the window. I couldn't see them clearly from where I was parked, but I knew. That's when I pulled up the live feed from my hidden camera on my phone. And there it was, Lisa and Mark, standing in my living room, embracing like lovers, his hand on her waist, her face buried in his neck. And then, without hesitation, they kissed. My entire world shattered in that single moment. I remember feeling like my body was outside of itself, Like I was watching someone else's life implode on screen. This wasn't supposed to be me. This wasn't supposed to be my wife, my best friend, my home, but it was. I watched them move to the couch, laughing and touching like it was the most natural thing in the world. The same couch where Lisa and I had curled up on lazy Sundays. The same couch where Mark had sat countless times during our game nights, joking and drinking beer like nothing in the world could shake our friendship. My chest ached so badly it felt like my heart might actually give out. Part of me wanted to storm in right then and there, to rip the door open, to scream, to make them see me watching. But another part of me, the quieter, colder part, told me to wait, to gather proof. Because if I confronted them now, they'd deny it. They'd twist it. They'd gaslight me. Tell me I was overreacting. And I couldn't let that happen. I needed them to hang themselves with their own rope. So I sat there in the dark, recording everything. And as I watched, I realized something else. Something that made the knife twist even deeper. This wasn't the first time. The way they acted, the comfort, the ease, the casual touches. It wasn't the energy of two people doing something dangerous and new. It was the energy of two people who had done this many, many times before. The betrayal wasn't a single night. It wasn't an accident. It was a long, ongoing choice. And that realization nearly broke me. But as broken as I felt, another fire started to burn inside me. A fire I hadn't felt before. A fire of resolve. If they thought they could humiliate me in my own home, betray me under my own roof, then they didn't know me as well as they thought they did. Because I wasn't going to cry quietly in the corner. I wasn't going to just walk away. No, I was going to make them pay. And I already had the evidence I needed to start. The confrontation at Emily's birthday dinner was supposed to be the end of it. A brutal, humiliating end, sure, but an end nonetheless. At least, that's what I thought. But if there's one thing betrayal teaches you, it's that the story never stops when you expect it to. The very next morning, I woke up to a flood of messages on my phone. At first, I thought they were just from the few friends who had been at the restaurant, maybe gossiping about what had happened. But as I scrolled, my stomach dropped. Screenshots. Dozens of them. Apparently, Emily hadn't just been cheating with Ryan. She had been playing some twisted double life game. There were messages to other men, some flirty, some explicit. Promises of "I love you," typed out at 2 a.m. while she was supposedly asleep next to me. It wasn't just one betrayal. It was a pattern. And the worst part? Ryan knew. He knew she was talking to other guys, and he still went along with it. My best friend was okay with being one of many. That's when the humiliation transformed into something else entirely. Anger. Not the kind of anger that makes you shout or break things, but the quiet, simmering kind. The kind that sharpens your focus and whispers, "This isn't over." For the next week, I barely slept. I combed through everything I had, photos, chats, shared accounts. And slowly, a plan formed in my mind. Emily always had this obsession with appearances. Her whole life was about looking perfect, both online and offline. The matching Instagram aesthetic, the carefully curated outfits, the fake happy couple posts that she made me take part in. She lived for other people's approval. So I thought to myself, if her image is what matters most, maybe that's where I should hit her. The first step was simple. I stopped hiding the truth. No more protecting her. No more swallowing my pride. I told my side of the story to everyone who asked. Neighbors, co-workers, friend of friends. They all heard the same thing. Emily wasn't who they thought she was. And here's the thing about people. Once they sense weakness in the mask someone wears, they start looking closer. It didn't take long before whispers started spreading. She cheated with his best friend, and he caught them on her birthday. The story had legs, and it started running on its own. But I didn't stop there. I still had access to some of Emily's social media accounts. She had left them logged in on my laptop, and as I scrolled through her drafts, I saw just how fake her perfect online life was. The captions she hadn't posted yet, the half-edited pictures, even a few desperate messages to influencers begging for collabs that never came. I could have just deleted it all, but I had a better idea. One night, while she was no doubt busy trying to spin her version of the story, I posted a single screenshot. Not explicit, not vulgar, just one of the messages she had sent Ryan while pretending to be at work. The caption was simple. This is who she really is. I didn't tag anyone. I didn't explain. But I didn't have to. Within hours, people were sharing it, commenting, asking questions. Her whole carefully built image started to crack. Emily called me in a panic the next morning, her voice shaking. "What did you do?" she demanded. I told the truth. I said calmly, "Something you never managed to do." She threatened to sue me, to call the police, to ruin my life. But the thing about threats is, they only work if the other person has something to lose. And after what she did to me, I had nothing left to lose. The next few weeks were chaos for her. Brands she worked with dropped her. Friends stopped answering her calls. Even Ryan started distancing himself. Because apparently, it's not so fun being with someone once their shiny reputation is gone. For me, it was strangely liberating. The man who had sat in that restaurant, humiliated and heartbroken, was gone. In his place was someone colder, wiser, and yes, a little darker. But the story wasn't finished yet. Because just when I thought Emily had finally disappeared from my life, she came back. And this time, she wasn't begging for forgiveness. She wanted revenge. The morning after Sarah's mysterious message, I woke up with a knot in my stomach. It was one thing to suspect betrayal, but another to know that someone out there had evidence. And the fact that they weren't coming forward openly, that was either a good sign or a very dangerous one. I replayed her words in my head 100 times. "Meet me tomorrow. I can prove everything." Prove what exactly? That Emma and Michael were sneaking behind my back? That they were lying about the whole work late excuse? Or something even darker? I didn't tell Emma I had plans that day. Instead, I pretended I was heading into the office early. But instead of driving to work, I parked my car 2 blocks away from the coffee shop Sarah had chosen. I walked the rest of the way, scanning the street like I was in some spy movie. Sarah was already there, sitting by the window with a large black coffee in her hands. When she saw me, she waved me over. I could tell by the way she looked at me, tired, frustrated, almost relieved that she had been carrying this burden for too long. "Thank you for coming," she said quietly. "I wasn't sure you would." "Sarah, just tell me straight," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "What do you know about Emma and Michael?" She leaned in, lowering her voice. "They've been meeting up for months. It's not just work dinners. It's hotels, late-night drives, secret weekends. I know because Michael isn't as careful as he thinks." My heart pounded so hard it hurt. "How do you know all this?" Sarah pulled out her phone, swiping through photos. There they were, blurry at first, but recognizable. Michael and Emma sitting close together at a restaurant, her hand brushing his arm. Another shot of them outside a hotel. Then, the one that made my stomach drop, Emma in the passenger seat of his car, her head resting on his shoulder. I felt the blood drain from my face. My hands shook as I stared at the evidence. "Why are you showing me this?" I whispered. "Because you deserve to know," Sarah said firmly. "Michael's been lying to both of us. He tells me he's busy with clients. He tells you he's helping Emma. But the truth is, they've been helping themselves." I sat back, gripping the edge of the table to steady myself. The anger rising in me was so strong, I thought I might explode right there. But I forced myself to breathe. "Do you think Emma loves him?" Sarah hesitated. "I don't know, but it's not just some fling. This has been going on too long." We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of it crushing both of us. Finally, Sarah said, "I'm not asking you to do anything rash, but if you want more proof, I can help you. I've already tracked some of their meetups. If we work together, we can catch them." For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt a flicker of control returning. Maybe I couldn't stop Emma from betraying me. Maybe I couldn't erase the pain. But I could decide how this story would end. I nodded slowly. "All right, we'll do it together. No more secrets." Sarah exhaled like a weight had lifted. "Good, because you're not the only one they've been making a fool of." That night, I went home and pretended nothing had changed. Emma greeted me with her usual smile, kissed me on the cheek, and asked about my day. For a second, I wondered if I was going insane, if maybe Sarah had made it all up. But then I remembered the photos, the way Emma's head rested on Michael's shoulder, the lies about working late. It was real, all of it. Emma talked about dinner plans, about needing to stay late again tomorrow. Every word that left her mouth was like a blade twisting deeper. But I played along. I smiled. I nodded. I pretended to be the clueless husband, because now I had a plan. Later that night, while Emma was in the shower, I scrolled through our shared calendar. Sure enough, she had blocked out time tomorrow for a client dinner. Only now, I knew what that really meant. I messaged Sarah, tomorrow night. Let's catch them together. Her reply came instantly. I'll be ready. The next evening, Emma put on one of her nicest dresses. She looked stunning, the kind of beauty that had drawn me to her in the first place. And it killed me inside knowing she wasn't dressing up for me. She kissed my cheek again before leaving, saying, "Don't wait up." I smiled and said, "Of course, honey. Have fun." As soon as the door closed, my mask slipped. I grabbed my keys, met Sarah a block away, and together we followed them. We kept our distance, careful not to get spotted. My heart was racing as we tailed them through traffic, my palms slick with sweat. Finally, they pulled into the parking lot of a hotel. I felt the world stop. It wasn't a restaurant. It wasn't a client dinner. It was a hotel. Emma stepped out of the car, laughing at something Michael said. He placed his hand on the small of her back, guiding her toward the entrance like they'd done this 100 times before. Sarah's hand tightened on my arm. There it is, the truth. And just like that, I knew this wasn't about suspicion anymore. This was betrayal, carved into stone. But what they didn't know was that I wasn't going to just sit back and take it. This time, I was ready. The police didn't waste any time. Within an hour of Mark making the call, 2 detectives showed up at the restaurant. They were dressed in plain clothes, but their presence carried an undeniable weight. They asked for Jenna first. I'll never forget the look on her face when they walked in. She was mid-sentence, laughing at something Tom had said, and suddenly she froze like a deer in headlights. Her eyes darted to me, then to Mark, then back to the detectives as they calmly introduced themselves and asked her to step outside. "Is there a problem?" she asked, her voice cracking just slightly. "That depends on you, ma'am," one of the detectives replied. "We'd like to ask you a few questions about some irregularities in your company's financial accounts." The color drained from Jenna's face. Tom stood up, trying to play the hero. "Hey, wait a second, what's going on here? This is outrageous. You can't just—" "Yes, we can." The detective cut him off sharply. "And unless you'd like to join us for questioning, I suggest you sit down." Tom's mouth clamped shut. The entire restaurant had gone silent. Everyone was watching, whispering, pulling out their phones to record. It was the exact kind of public humiliation I had imagined in my darkest hours. But I didn't feel victorious. I just felt hollow. Jenna got up slowly, her hands trembling. She looked at me one last time, her eyes full of panic, as if I could somehow rescue her. But I didn't move. Not a word left my lips. She was escorted out, and Tom sat there, sweating bullets. His cocky facade was cracking right in front of everyone. Mark leaned in and whispered, "That's step 1. Step 2 came faster than I expected. By the next morning, news had already spread. A local journalist had picked up the story. Embezzlement, tax evasion, fraud. Jenna's name was plastered across headlines. Tom tried to distance himself, but the detectives were smarter than that. They had traced some of the stolen money straight into one of his accounts. Suddenly, he wasn't just Jenna's sidekick. He was her partner in crime. It was like watching dominoes fall. One push, and everything they had built together collapsed in front of the world. But here's the twist. As satisfying as it should have been to see them exposed, I didn't feel done, not even close. Because all of that, the investigation, the financial ruin, wasn't my plan. That was Mark's doing. My plan was still waiting. You see, I hadn't just wanted them to lose money or face jail time. I wanted them to feel what I felt. The betrayal, the humiliation, the sense of having your entire world ripped out from under you. And I had saved one final card just for that. 2 weeks later, when Jenna was desperately trying to salvage what little reputation she had left, I sent her a message. It was short, just 5 words. I still have the video. Her response came within minutes. A phone call. "Please," she begged, her voice breaking. "Don't do this. You've already ruined me. If that video gets out, You what?" I interrupted coldly. "Lose the last ounce of dignity you've been clinging to?" Silence. "Jenna, you laughed in my face. You paraded around with my so-called best friend. You made me believe I was crazy. And now you want mercy." Tears choked her voice. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'll do anything." For the first time in months, I smiled. "Good," I said. "Then you'll play by my rules now." And that's how the real game began. The courtroom became a battlefield. My lawyer, calm and composed, began questioning Lisa. At first, she answered confidently, painting me as an abusive, manipulative husband. I clenched my fists under the table, forcing myself not to react. But then came the first crack. "Mrs. Williams," my lawyer said, "isn't it true that on the night you claim your husband attacked you, you were actually at a hotel?" Lisa froze. Her eyes darted to her attorney, then back to the judge. "And no, that's not true. Let me refresh your memory." My lawyer pressed a button on his laptop, and the screen behind the judge lit up. A hotel check-in record appeared. Lisa's name, signature, timestamp. The exact night she said I was abusing her. Gasps filled the courtroom. Lisa stammered, That doesn't mean anything." "Oh, it means everything," my lawyer said, his voice sharp as a blade. "Because it proves you lied under oath." The judge's eyes narrowed. "Mrs. Williams, you are under oath right now. Do you understand the seriousness of perjury?" Lisa's face turned white. She tried to recover, but the more she spoke, the deeper she dug herself. Then came the real bombshell. "Your Honor," my lawyer said, "we have video evidence, collected legally. Would you like to see what Lisa was really doing at that hotel?" Lisa shot up from her chair. "No, that's not relevant," she yelled. The judge raised a hand. "Sit down, Mrs. Williams. Play the video." The footage began. Grainy at first, but clear enough. Lisa entering the hotel room. Moments later, Tom followed her in. The courtroom erupted. Murmurs, gasps, people shaking their heads. My daughter, sitting behind me, covered her mouth with her hand, tears streaming down her face. Lisa collapsed back into her chair, her head in her hands. The judge slammed the gavel. Order in the court. But the damage was done. Everyone had seen it. Everyone knew the truth. And for the first time in months, I felt the weight begin to lift off my chest. Because now, it wasn't just my word against hers. It was undeniable. The mask Lisa had worn for so long was finally ripped away, and the war was finally turning in my favor. The judge adjusted her glasses, her expression unreadable as she looked from Lisa to Tom and then back at me. "Mr. Miller," she said, "this is highly unusual evidence, but given its relevance, I will allow it. However," her gaze sharpened at Lisa, "any further attempt at misleading this court will carry serious consequences." The silence that followed was almost suffocating. Tom sat frozen, his face pale, his confidence shattered. Lisa's lawyer leaned close to her, whispering furiously, but Lisa just shook her head, her hands trembling in her lap. I sat still, my heart pounding, but inside, I felt something I hadn't in months. Hope. Then came the cross-examination. Lisa's lawyer tried desperately to spin the video, arguing that the footage was taken out of context, that the audio wasn't clear enough, and that Lisa was simply upset and venting in a private moment. But the jury wasn't buying it. You could see it in their faces, the disbelief, the disgust, the shift in perception. They had just seen with their own eyes who Lisa really was when she thought no one was watching. And then Tom made the mistake of opening his mouth. "Look, this doesn't prove anything," he snapped, his voice cracking with panic. She was just emotional. Everyone says things they don't mean." The judge raised an eyebrow. Mr. Carter, you are not under oath. I suggest you remain silent unless addressed. But he couldn't stop. His fear was louder than his self-control. You don't understand. She didn't mean it. This was just... Mr. Carter. The judge's voice was ice. One more outburst, and I will have you removed from this courtroom. The room buzzed with whispers. My lawyer leaned toward me, whispering, "They're unraveling. This is exactly what we needed." For the first time, I believed him. When court adjourned for the day, I walked out of that building not as a broken man, but as someone standing on the edge of justice finally being served. Reporters swarmed outside, cameras flashing, microphones thrust forward. "Mr. Miller, how does it feel to expose the truth? Do you think Lisa will face charges for lying under oath? Was this your plan all along?" I didn't answer. I just kept walking, my daughter's small hand in mine. But deep inside, I knew this battle wasn't over yet. Lisa still had cards to play. Tom still had influence. And if I wanted to protect my daughter and finally free myself from their lies, I would have to stay one step ahead, because the next round in court would be the one that decided everything. The next morning, the atmosphere in the courtroom felt different. The jury filed in with stern faces, and even the judge carried an air of finality, as if she knew today could change everything. Lisa entered last. She was a shadow of herself. No confident smiles, no carefully rehearsed poise. Her makeup couldn't hide the puffiness around her eyes, and her once perfect composure cracked with every glance toward the jury. Tom sat beside her, jittery, avoiding eye contact with everyone. The prosecution wasted no time. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," the attorney began, voice steady, "yesterday you witnessed firsthand the truth behind Mrs. Miller's words and actions. Today, we will show you that this was not an isolated slip of the tongue. This is a pattern." They presented text messages, emails, receipts of financial transactions Lisa had tried to conceal. Every piece painted a clearer picture. Betrayal, manipulation, lies stacked upon lies. Lisa's lawyer objected at every turn, but the judge overruled most of them. It was clear the tide had turned. When Lisa finally took the stand, the silence in the room was deafening. She tried to maintain her composure, her voice trembling as she insisted, "I only ever wanted what was best for my family. This video, it makes me look heartless, but that's not who I am. I was pushed, I was hurt, I was..." The prosecutor cut in sharply. "Mrs. Miller, are you denying that those words were yours?" Her lips trembled. She glanced at Tom, who looked away. Then she stammered, I don't remember saying them. Maybe it was edited. Maybe..." The prosecutor pressed harder. "Mrs. Miller, you're under oath. Do you expect this jury to believe that the footage of you, in your own home, speaking in your own voice, was fabricated?" Lisa's face crumbled. Her hands clutched at the edge of the witness stand, as if it could save her from drowning. I just wanted out. I didn't mean to..." The courtroom erupted with murmurs. The judge banged her gavel for order, but the damage was done. Lisa's mask had finally shattered in front of everyone. When she stepped down, her lawyer avoided her eyes. Tom, pale and sweating, looked like he wanted to disappear. As my attorney stood to deliver his closing statement, I realized I wasn't just fighting for custody or for justice. I was fighting to reclaim my life from the lies that had nearly destroyed me. And for the first time in a long time, I believed I was going to win. The jury deliberated for only 3 hours. For such a complicated case, that was fast, and it spoke volumes. When they filed back into the courtroom, every person seemed to hold their breath. Lisa sat rigid, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles turned white. Tom kept shifting in his seat, eyes darting everywhere but toward me. The foreperson stood and read the verdict. "We, the jury, find in favor of the plaintiff." The words echoed like thunder. For a moment, I wasn't sure if I'd heard correctly. And then it hit me. I had won. Lisa gasped audibly, covering her mouth with trembling hands. Tom muttered something under his breath, sinking into his chair as though the floor might open up and swallow him whole. The judge's voice carried authority as she added, "Custody of the child is granted solely to Mr. Miller. Furthermore, financial restitution will be decided in a separate hearing. Court is adjourned. The gavel struck. It was over. Lisa's lawyer immediately leaned toward her, whispering frantically, but she pushed him away, tears streaking down her face. Tom slipped out of the courtroom quickly, avoiding the cameras waiting in the hallway. Lisa wasn't so lucky. Reporters swarmed her, microphones in her face, asking about the footage, about her lies, about what she had to say now. And me? For the first time in months, I could breathe. As I walked out of that courtroom, the world felt lighter. My daughter was waiting for me at home, safe from the chaos. The truth had prevailed, not because I screamed louder, not because I fought dirtier, but because I trusted in patience and proof. Later that night, sitting in our quiet living room, my daughter curled up beside me and asked softly, "Daddy, are we going to be okay now?" I looked at her, her small hand gripping mine, and I knew the answer without hesitation. Yes, sweetheart, we're going to be better than okay. Outside, the city buzzed with noise and life, but in that moment, all I felt was peace. The storm had passed, and Lisa, her face, pale and broken in that courtroom when the truth finally caught up with her, was burned into my memory. The woman who once laughed at my pain was now living in the ruins of her own lies. Justice had been served.